you can listen to my take on it all. My take doesn't matter. Someone's take who I'm dying to hear is boxing royalty, is one of my favorite people that I met while at ESPN, an absolute mensch of a human being and an absolute brilliant, brilliant mind when it comes to the sweet science. What an honor it is to have the one and only Teddy Atlas on the program to help make sense of what happened last night in Cleveland, Ohio. There he is, the one and only Teddy Atlas. Teddy, thank you so much for doing this. I know you had to rearrange your schedule a little bit for me. I really, really appreciate it. Thank you for the time and good to see you.
Anything for a good person. There's not a million of them out there.
Thank you.
So anything for a good human being. And I'll tell you, you're making me stretch my universe because I never did this before. I had somebody coming over here who does our podcast, and we rescheduled our podcast. We do it today, and so my guy who films it, he was coming later, and then I said, well, can you come earlier again because we rescheduled this, and I'm doing this with Ariel. So he got caught up in traffic. So I didn't think he was going to make it. He just walked in actually a few seconds ago. So I didn't want to disappoint you. So I feel like I just split molecules. I feel like I just conquered space.
This is the first time that you've done a Zoom on your own?
First time.
Wow.
First time. So, yeah, thank you.
I believe in you, Teddy. I'm happy, if nothing else.
Bringing me into this world where I could get a toe outside the world of fighting for a second, only fighting, and I could actually do something beyond that. I feel like I'm in outer space right now.
This is beautiful.
So,
well, I'm happy you're doing it with me, that we're traveling together to outer space. Dying to know your thoughts on, first off, the main event. Jake Paul wins via split decision. Bit of a surprise there, but he wins the decision nonetheless against Tyron Woodley. 8-round fight. It goes the distance. I will just sit back and just soak it all in. Digest your knowledge, your wisdom. What did you make of the fight last night, Teddy?
Oh, first of all, I had picked Paul to win the fight. But I had picked him to win by knockout.
Right.
Full transparency. We're always very honest. We try to be very honest, and we should be honest. And so that's the first thing. And the reason why is I just saw a vulnerability in Woodley where he would push his jab, and Paul is confident with his right hand. I'm not saying he's got an Ernie Shavers right hand, but he's got a decent right hand. And more importantly, he believes in it. So I thought there'd be a window of opportunity to sneak the right hand over that push jab. But where Woodley threw a curveball to me, and it shouldn't have been a curveball, to be honest, is he continued what he's been consistent with. And in no way am I knocking the greatest welterweight champion in UFC history. That would be blasphemy. I'm not doing that at all. I'm just pointing things out from my perspective, from my world and my experience. And what I saw is what he's been doing, and he's lost 4 fights in a row for a reason. He's gotten older. Okay, we understand that he's 39 years old, but his demeanor has become more passive. And that's probably a word I shouldn't use in UFC. But there's degrees of passiveness, and he has just gotten more cautious, and it's caused him to lose fights. So that remained with him, and he made a decision to continue to be cautious rather than be vulnerable. And I think it allowed him to be able to go the rounds and be competitive, but it stopped him from having a chance to win. And that's the truth. And again, maybe at 39, he's not able to run the engine faster than that anymore. Maybe. But sticking to that analogy of a car and an engine, he spent too much time revving the engine, in the driveway. He didn't get it out on the road because, yeah, he applied pressure, but with no punches. I mean, to speak of, only in spots, the 4th round and the 8th round. But he didn't punch enough. And pressure without punching, well, it's kind of like the fall is coming, autumn is coming, and there's going to be a lot of leaves to rake. And it's kind of like raking all those leaves, Ariel, and you rake them all into a pile, and then you don't get rid of them. You just leave them in a pile, and the wind blows them back, and you got leaves again. And what the hell did you do? You didn't do nothing. You just got tired. And that's kind of what happened. That, you know, he raked the leaves into a pile, you know, but he didn't get rid of them. And he didn't punch, and he left his man, Paul, there. And just like the leaves will come back and they will scatter and they will take their place, well, Paul was able to come back and scatter to the outskirts again and use the jab and be able to carry the action or carry the rhythm of the fight and be able to control the parameters of the ring enough to win. That split decision, it was absurd. It was absurd. I mean, Paul won probably 6 rounds. You want to make it 5 rounds, 5. But to have a split decision, no. But the bottom line is that Woodley, whether he made a conscious decision or that's him now, that's just his MO. I mean, that's him. You know, I always talk about fighters. We talk about them like machines too much, Ariel, where we say, well, the guy's going to do this because he's got a good left hook and he's got endurance and he's physically strong and he's this. No, it means crap unless it's attached to your temperament, to your character, to who you are. I stayed to the racing car. The racing car, yeah, it's got all those RPMs in it. It's got all that horsepower in it, or a special race car, but it's up to the driver. Is the driver aggressive? Is the driver the guy that drove Miss Daisy? If it's the driver that drove Miss Daisy, guess what? The race car don't mean diddly squat how many horsepower it's got in the race. It don't matter because you're going to drive it slow. That is what Woodley is. He drives the car slow. And at the end of the day, I don't know if he made a conscious decision to keep it slow or it's just what he does now. And it's become ingrained into him, into his confidence, into his system, and his lack of maybe confidence to a certain extent of trusting himself to open up, if you will, and get it on the highway. So at the end of the day, yeah, he won the 4th and the 8th round, but even then, he didn't sell out. And then listen, give him credit, he didn't get caught either. But what was at the end of the day, what was truly his goal? You know, what was his goal? Was it to win or was it to be not embarrassed? And I think that it's a fair question to ask. And it's not a knock. It's really not. How can I knock a man who's been such a special gladiator? Of course, I would never do that. Matter of fact, at the end of the day, in my mind, they both won. Yeah, I know they both got paid, but I'm not talking about those dimensions financially. They both won in a way that, again, Woodley didn't get embarrassed. He showed that he could be competitive there, and he showed that he could go into a boxing realm. Yeah, he's not in there with Jake LaMotta. I get it, but he's out of his realm. He's he's not allowed to bring his skill set or his other skill sets, his real skill sets. He's not allowed to bring that. And let's be fair about it. That's part of it. At the end of the day, if you want something physical, tangible, that won the fight, that carried the fight, the longer jab of Paul. Now, yeah, we know he's big, he's taller, but he extends his jab. Woodley doesn't extend his jab. And again, he developed this over the recent years of getting into a bad place, a losing place, where he was always just pushing it, looking for the right hand, looking for that to get him home. And not snapping that jab out, not extending it, not getting full value for it. And the one thing about Paul, again, you could be taller and longer, but it don't mean diddly squat if you don't throw it longer. And he threw it longer. And by throwing it longer, he was able to keep the separation he needed to keep Woodley from getting into his area where he needed to land the right hand, or he was doing okay with the left hook, to land anything. He was able to, as I often say, control the geography. Because the geography, from the physical standpoint of a fight, is so important. Who controls the area that they need to control for the assets they have that best serves those assets? And for Paul, it was to control the outside. And Woodley could have done better if he extended the jab, shorter or not, if he extended the jab. And he did once or twice, and it landed. But there was no consistency. There was no consistency to do that. And maybe the habit has become too ingrained, or maybe the mentality of being defensive-minded, of being cautious. Maybe that has creeped into his subconscious now, to the point that he doesn't really fully understand that, or have full control over the idea of, sort of letting the throttle, opening up the throttle to the point that he would have had to actually do more than just go rounds and just be there. He was there competitive. There was always a chance. At the end of the day, he can hang his hat and will hang his hat on. He came, he heard him, he tested him. He can make an argument in his mind that he was beyond competitive, that maybe he should have got the fight. And like I said, they both won in a way that he didn't get embarrassed the way Askren did. He went in there, he behaved like a champion. He showed why he was a champion. He showed that pedigree. And the other guy won in a way, not only that he got his hand raised, but that he got tested. And that he behaved like a fighter when he got tested, where people weren't sure if that would happen, where he showed something authentic, some he gained credibility. He gained credibility. His bank account has already gained enough, but he hadn't gained in the other currency, the currency of people believing that he actually had the character of a fighter. And he won in that area. So they both won in their own ways, without getting their hands raised, without even talking about how their bank accounts got increased. They both gained what they were looking for as people, as competitors, as people that have to live with themselves more than just, on a stage. And
can I ask you, Teddy,
again,
how did you feel about Jake going into the fight, and did your respect for him change? I said on the broadcast that I thought he was fighting for respect. I thought Tyron was fighting for his legacy, and I think his legacy is intact. Nothing's changed there for Tyron. But the boxing community, as you know, sort of looking down on Jake, calling him a circus, not recognizing that he's giving the likes of Amanda Serrano and Daniel Dubois and Montana Love, legitimate fighters, a chance to fight on a bigger platform and shine. For some reason, ignoring that fact. But as far as Jake the fighter, who now went 8 rounds, who took big shots, who showed that he could go the distance with a former UFC champion, even if it's in his pro boxing debut, for someone like yourself, which, I think it's the ultimate compliment. If you say you respect someone in boxing, do you now have a newfound respect for Jake Paul after what he did last night?
I respected him from the beginning in this way, Ariel. And this might blow some people's minds up and there'll be brain material all over the walls because Teddy Atlas is daring to give any credit to a guy who dares to invade the sacred place of boxing.
Yes.
Dares to do that. Dares to do that. Oh, Teddy, how can you say that? This is destroying the integrity of our sport. Listen, I gave him credit and respect for going out there in an earnest way and learning the sport the best he could and committing himself to it and really, really dedicating himself to learning. I gave him respect for that from the beginning. And I gave him appreciation and understood and kudos for doing the American way, finding a way to make money, without doing something criminal. He found a way to make money, and he dedicated himself to what had to be dedicated to look like a fighter and to be able to technically be able to get in those waters and not drown. And what I found out was when a wave hit him, because before he was just swimming at his own leisurely pace, he was. And I give him credit. He learned how to swim. He learned how to swim in a boxing pool. But this time he got smacked with a freaking wave. And he didn't jump out of the pool. That's what, yeah. And for me, until he got hit with that wave, I didn't know what was underneath. And I found out that I had suspicions that there was something underneath because of the way that he went about, committing himself to this. And the way he put himself out there, where when the moment came, it's almost like he put himself out there so much that he better step up when the moment came, or he better find a cave somewhere, real far away where there's not a lot of people living, because it would be kind of embarrassing walking around as him if he didn't. It's kind of like I would see these fighters when I was doing the fights for ESPN all those years, and I would see them at the weigh-ins, and they would have a tattoo of a chain and gloves around their neck on their body, and people would say, "Gee, why would you do that? Why would you put that?" I know why they did it, to force themselves to live up to what they've said they're living up to force them to put themselves on the carpet, to put themselves on record, because you will look foolish with that tattoo around your chest and neck if you do not get to that place that you say you're good enough to get to, that you're putting all the marbles into that corner, if you will, into that court. So it kind of forces you. You force yourself to remind yourself that you must get there. Otherwise, you will embarrass yourself. Otherwise, you will not be able to live it down. I remember one time I had a fighter in the corner, undefeated heavyweight fighter, and he had orange dreadlocks. A very talented fighter. And he was being tested a little bit in the fight. And I was concerned. It wasn't a big stage like HBO or anything where we were up, but we wanted to get to that stage. And if he didn't win here, we don't get to that stage. And obviously he had gone out of his way to have this look, so people would know who he was. And I needed to wake him up. I needed to remind him of what it meant. So I got a pair of scissors and I started cutting the dreadlocks, the orange dreadlocks off. I cut a few off and threw them into the water bucket. And he was like, what are you doing? What am I doing? I'm helping you. I'm helping you. I'm getting you ready for what you're going to have to do on tomorrow if you don't perform to the way that you need to perform. Because otherwise everyone's going to say, oh, that's the guy with the orange dreadlocks who was supposed to be a champion fighter, who showed everybody what he looked like and what a champion would look like. And he wasn't afraid to have that look, to stand out and to have, everybody admire that, everybody embrace that, everybody obviously acknowledge that. But now that you're not looking like you behaving like that, and you might not be prepared to behave like that and do the hard part, I'm helping you now. I'm getting you, I'm taking them off so people won't know who you are. So people won't point a finger and say, that's the guy who acted like he was, who dressed like he was going to be a champion, but he didn't fight like he was going to be a champion when the moment came. So I'm helping you now. You're going to have to you might want to get a wig and a nose and, those fluffy eyebrows, but I'm helping you at least get rid of this and get started with the disguise. So for me, Paul was in that position where when you put yourself out there that much, my guess would be that he would have to find the strength when the moment came, that he knew that. Otherwise, like I said, you go into witness protection plan. You better find a real quiet cave somewhere, because otherwise the rest of your life is going to be people pointing and saying, that's the guy who made believe he was a fighter. That's the guy who made money without, talk to talk. But when the war came, he sat down. He didn't walk the walk. So I felt that he would probably, but you never know till you know.
Could I ask?
He would behave that way.
Could I ask about the notion? I was just talking about this earlier. As you know, most people get into fighting ultimately to get paid, to get rich. No one wants to do this just for the sake of doing it. He's getting into the sport of prize fighting already being rich, excuse me. And so I'm wondering if we have to almost appreciate this young man while he's still here in the world of boxing, because at some point, I almost sensed it yesterday in the post-fight interview, he's going to say, all right, this was fun, but I don't want to keep getting punched in the face and training and cutting weight because I already have the money. He's doing this the reverse way. It's the thing we're saying about Conor McGregor now, right? He's rich. He doesn't want to pound the pavement anymore. This guy's already rich at 24 years old. So do you think this is going to, be somewhat short-lived because he doesn't have to go through all the trials and tribulation to get the money? He already has the money.
No, I don't think so.
Okay.
Because I don't think so. I think he's in search of something, deeper, more inner, where, finding out for himself who he is and who he can be and if he can be that. And you don't get a lot of chances to find that out. When the time comes, especially athletically in this way, you make the jump to say I'm in, or you don't. I mean, you can't do it later. You can't do it 15 years, 10 years from now. And I think that this kid has a little bit, of the sort of mind that you get a chance to stand out, maybe once in a lifetime, to kind of trace who you are, challenge where you can go, and you know, can I be better? And can I be better than what I've been? And then once you get there, how good can I be? And I don't mean athletically and physically, but I mean as far as going into caverns, spaces, darkness, and not being sure whether or not you're going to be able to get through, and kind of lighting the lights as you go. And when you think about it, what a privilege that is. Wow, what a blast to be able to, you know, push your own limits, push your own walls back, and then start to wonder, are there walls? I mean, are there walls? Or are there the walls that we put up, that we say, you know, we can't go any further because we dare not to go any further, because we, you know, we haven't seen what that is. And, you know, people go out there and they jump out of airplanes, you know, without parachutes, you know, and then at the last second, they're pushed to limits of when they open up to shoot, or what kind of shoot they're going to open up. They want to see what they're willing to deal with, like how, you know, how threatened can you get? Because everything is a threat to us when we get to a certain place, you know, in life. You know, it's a threat that we're getting old. It's a threat that we could get sick. You got to take care of yourself. It's a threat that you might ask for too much and your boss might fire you. You know, it's a threat that you might throw the ball if your baseball puts you too hard and you could blow out your ligaments. I mean, how far are we willing to deal with these threats, to find out what we can truly do? And I think he's got an opportunity to do this. And I think on some level, he understands that. And I think I obviously there's a certain celebrityness that goes with it, and a certain, you know, high, if you will, that is gotten from it. You know, being able to be that person, that star, so to speak, that celebrity now. But again, it's also something more inner, more personal, where you could just, you know, without getting too much with this, to find out, you know, what your purpose here is. Like, you know, do I have a purpose where maybe I could teach people? Maybe by doing this, you know, because I saw a little growth. It was the first time afterwards that he actually said something that was decent and made sense, where he used to say a lot of selfish baloney stuff that was just self-promoting, and, you know, it was part of that. It
was nice.
You know, what you'd kind of expect. But he talked about bullying. He talked about, you know, not being bullied. He talked about how he was less of a person, and he's learned to be a better person now by not bullying. And maybe that's part of why he's doing this, because he didn't like that person. Maybe he felt that he was fraudulent, and now he wants to find out if he's not fraudulent. And, you know, because he wants to find out, now that I'm not in a position where I have the upper hand all the time, where the script is written, so to speak, where, you know, I have people with me or whatever it is to bully somebody. Now maybe he's, you know, he wants to find out if he's better than that, and he wants to be better than that.
And I think he is.
And
I think he's a better person.
I think he is too, and he showed that. I think. And I don't want to get carried away with it, but I think it did show.
It's the ultimate proving ground to show who you truly are. You're in there, essentially.
And
naked.
I think he's paying a penance. I think in our own way, for our sins, no matter how young or how old we are, we pay a penance, a private penance, and I think that in his own way, this is his penance, where he needs to put himself in a position where maybe he could get smacked, and maybe he could get paid back for some of the things that he maybe thinks he deserves to be paid back for, or maybe he can get beyond it and get awarded and rewarded for daring to improve in that area. And that's I think that that's part of it. And I just think that
and that's why you have to respect him ultimately, because he is putting himself out there when a lot of other people would not.
Listen, having said that, I'm always a person that I always admire the fighters that are the most dimensional. And so I look at all dimensions. I almost to a fault where I'll put, if I don't have a flashlight, I'll put a pen light into a little crevice and say, wait a minute, there's still something we didn't look at over here. And let's not forget that also, here's something that, for the people that didn't lose their minds, they'll lose them when I say this initially. He's a lot like Floyd Mayweather, where he's very smart about picking his opponents, where he picks his opponents. He's not stupid. He's not on a kamikaze mission. He's on a mission, but it's not kamikaze. It's to accomplish something and to win and to be alive. And knowing there's a risk, but a belief that he will be superior to that risk. He will be up to that risk. And so let's understand that part of it, that he picks Woodley, he picked Askren, he picked Robinson. I mean, he picks all these guys knowing that and still, you got to admire him, because even with that, Woodley still hurt him. Woodley still got to him. Woodley is still a legendary UFC fighter, a guy who's a gladiator. And he got in the ring with that guy. But he knew that he had certain edges, certain advantages. I think that he looks at those things pretty carefully. He understood what I understood, why I picked him.
Yeah, he picked Woodley, the guy who had the who was on the losing streak with the with the resume that he was able to pick off at this juncture in his career. Teddy, I don't mean to cut you off, but we have to get going, and I know you have to get to your next endeavor, which is your podcast, which I want to tell everyone to go check out. It's called The Fight with Teddy Atlas. You've got a podcast that you're about to tape now that will be dropped later. It is always an honor to have you on. It's always an honor to pick your brain, to talk to you. I appreciate this very much, and I'll talk to you soon, okay?
Take care, Ariel. Appreciate you.
You're the man, Teddy Atlas. There he is, the one and only boxing royalty. You feel a little bit smarter about the fight game when you have Teddy Atlas on your program, and I feel a little bit smarter, and I hope you enjoyed that insight as well.